Model United Nations. Many high school students get involved in this extracurricular activity. Is it worth your time, especially as it relates to the college admissions process? My name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach and expert. You can learn about me and how you can work with me one-on-one through every step of the college admissions process at my website, collegemeister.com. So right off the bat, I said it. It's true. Model United Nations is one of the most common extracurricular activities I see on extracurricular lists or resumes of students with whom I work. And it's almost, if anything, it's getting more popular over the last 15, 18 years of doing this. And the question you have to ask yourself when you get involved in any extracurricular activity, today we're sort of we're highlighting, we're spotlighting Model United Nations, but this really could apply to almost any extracurricular activity that is an activity that is on offer at various schools in your community, in your state, or your country, or even in the world, as is the case with Model UN, because there are students in Bangladesh in a Model UN chapter. There are students in Frisco, Texas in a Model UN chapter. There are students in LA, in California, in New York, in Miami, in Rio, in Tokyo, in Vienna, you name it. Under a rock somewhere in Norway, there's a Model UN club. So right off the bat, we know that Model UN is very common, very popular. That's okay. I mean, that's not the end of the world. That means a lot of students like involving themselves in it. Or do they? Are they just doing it because it's a popular choice for schools to offer? So there's a lot of things we have to untangle here. When we're thinking about it from two perspectives, it's really valuable. First, you got to think about what's going to make you happy. What do you want to investigate? What do you want to learn more about? What are you interested in? That's one big sphere of importance. The other big sphere of importance for you as a student is, what is this going to look like for colleges? Is this going to help me or hurt me? Now, I think your decisions should ideally be based off of both of those spheres of influence. But if there's one that's most important, I think it ultimately should be what do you actually enjoy doing? What are you interested in learning? What are you curious about? Because if you're curious about what you're doing every day, you're going to go deeper with it, get better and stronger in it, and that's going to pay dividends for your college application, even if it's a relatively typical club or activity. You're going to have a better performance in it if you're really into it. So don't let the tail wag the dog. And just because Craig has told you today that Model United Nations is basically available at thousands of schools all around the world, don't let that scare you from taking part in Model United Nations because you think it's not going to be differentiatable enough. Now, it might not be differentiatable enough, and this is a situation in which it would not be a good choice for you to involve yourself in this activity for two reasons. Number one, let's say at your school there's 15 club offerings, your high school, and you don't really like any of them, but the one you like the best is Model UN. You say, oh, maybe there's a friend of yours in it. Maybe someone you want to date's in it. Maybe you really like the advisor. You have that teacher for history. And so you got to choose a club for the club period twice a week or whatever at your school. And you're like, I don't really like any of these. I'll just do Model UN. That is not a great situation because most likely you're going to do it. You're going to do it because you feel like you have to do a club. It's important to get involved. Maybe you actually literally have to do it because there's a club period during your school day. It's not an after-school activity, let's say, at your school. You have to actually do it during the course of the day, in which case you're sort of doing it reactively. You're not doing it because you're really excited about it. It's like it's the least worst option for you. Most likely, if you do it, you will do it okay, and you may not really get into it. Maybe you'll fall in love with it, which would be great. It's always good to experiment, and I'm happy to do something as opposed to just sit with your head down on a desk for 45 minutes once a week. But so I would still encourage you to do something, but the most likely thing that will happen for most students is they'll do it. They'll sort of be a background or below average player in the club or activity or chapter, and then 2-3 years later, they'll put it on their extracurricular list in their application, and it will read incredibly vanilla, meaning it will read on the application as a typical entry does. Model UN chapter at my school, member. You'll title yourself as a member. Maybe you'll say you represented India in this local MUN conference, or maybe you represented Denmark in this MUN conference. And there won't be anything really noteworthy at all as a result of your 2 to 3 or 4 years even in this particular club, because you sort of did it half-heartedly, and you were sort of disengaged, frankly, from the whole experience of Model UN. In that particular case, I think it's a huge loss for you, because the resume entry already is coming from a place of disadvantage, because it's a relatively common activity for students all around the world to have on their resume. And then on your resume, it particularly is forgettable because you didn't do anything remarkable, noteworthy, leadership oriented, or original with your particular engagement with Model UN. If, however, you really are interested in diplomacy, you really are interested in foreign affairs, you really are interested in international relations, maybe you're particularly interested in the Balkans, maybe you're particularly interested in issues related to Northern South America, particularly between Guyana and Venezuela. Your family is from Venezuela, and you are following the news very vociferously. You love to learn about the machinations between what's going on between these two countries and their border dispute. I mean, and you want to get into Model UN because you want to make a real splash as it relates to South American diplomacy and how maybe the United States can be more engaged in a way they haven't been for decades. If you're really into it, you're going to make of it something really special, most likely, because of your passion, because you bring to the table already pre-existing proactive interest in this activity. So most likely, if you join Model UN, you're already sort of like awake. You are aware of things going on in the world. You're going to try to harness that knowledge and connect it to your experience in Model UN. And maybe your Model UN experience and team is going to end up being a much better and lively experience because of your contributions to it. They'll see that, they'll reward you. Maybe you'll become president or secretary or have a special role at a conference as a speaking role, younger than you otherwise would have. So by the time you apply to college, your experience with Model UN is not going to just read like a vanilla resume entry. You're going to be able to say, as a Model UN member, or maybe even leader, or maybe you have president. I don't know what they call it at your particular school, but maybe you have leadership-oriented roles over the 4 years in high school, or 3 years in high school, or 2 years in high school that you're involved with Model United Nations. Your resume entry is also going to go into deeper depth about what it is you've accomplished in that particular club, Model UN. You're going to maybe, I hope, do much more with it because you bring to it passion. You bring to it interest. You bring to it curiosity. And yeah, of course, this is an opportunity on offer at many schools just in your county, maybe even in your zip code, let alone your country, let alone the world. But you really are passionate about it. The resume entry you're going to produce, God willing, by the end of this process, if you actually take the time to spell it out for colleges, and again, this is something that's very important. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around, doesn't make a sound. If you are an all-star in Model UN, but you don't write about it clearly in your extracurricular resume on your application, did it really happen? It's the same idea. You have to make sure that as you accomplish things within Model UN over the time you're in Model UN, that you're keeping track of all the things you're accomplishing and then putting that all into your extracurricular resume entry for Model UN by the time you're actually submitting your application. Below this video, by the way, there's a link to my very short course, How to Build an Extraordinary Extracurricular Resume, which I encourage you to watch, because that video explains how you can actually build a really strong extracurricular resume for the very specific purpose of college applications. There's all different genres of resume. They're professional resumes. They're resumes that are in search of an internship or summer job. The resume that is talked about and discussed and explored in that particular short course that I produced. Again, the name of the course, How to Build an Extraordinary Extracurricular Resume, it's linked below this video, is all about producing an extracurricular resume specifically for the benefit of getting into colleges on, having an awesome college application. So make sure you watch that if you are interested. But you're going to have a much better resume entry if you come to the Model UN with passion, or if something in Model UN in your first days or weeks within Model UN sparks in you a true passion, it's going to snowball. I'm mixing metaphors here, but basically you get my point. You're going to go deeper. You're going to become a leader. You're going to pursue more original output in Model UN as a result of the passion you bring to the actual activity. So overall, as generic advice, I would say, yeah, avoid the common activities, because common is not something you want to be on your college application. You want to be unique. You want to be original. However, don't shy away from a particular very popular, very typical activity like Model UN if you in fact really are interested in it. Because if you are really interested in it, it's most likely you're going to be, let's say, in the top 10 percentile of people in it in terms of performance, output, interest. You're going to be producing work that could definitely boomerang back for something that you can put on your actual college application resume entry about that particular activity. Maybe there'll be such a great experience you have, you'll write your college application essay about a day in the life at the MUN conference at Penn or the MUN conference at Georgetown. And so you're going to be able to talk about something particular that happened, someone you met in, this was something you put your heart and soul into. So it's very likely in such a situation you have other very important life experiences that intersect with Model UN as a result of how much time, vigor, energy you put into a club that you're really interested in. So don't avoid a particular club or activity just because it's common. But again, what unfortunately happens with the vast majority of students is that they pursue it in a relatively typical way. They don't do anything particularly noteworthy with MUN, and even if they do, they don't take the time to communicate effectively on their extracurricular portion of their application about what they did do uniquely. They just write Model UN member, attended 3 conferences per year, and that's it. You got to actually not only work for it while you're in the activity, in this case MUN, you have to actually work for how you're going to communicate it about it in such a way as to convey to colleges that this activity was meaningful to you, you got something out of it, and you contributed something to it. Maybe even more than one thing. Especially if you're in it for 4 years, I would hope that it's not just a flat line of, oh, you go to 1 conference a year. And that's all, and you've represented Denmark, India, Malaysia, and Australia over 4 years. I mean, that reads like a completely forgettable resume, because remember, multiply out all the kids in Model UN across all the schools across all the world. What have you said that's anything special? You haven't. Whereas if you say you were in Model UN and you particularly focus your time on issues related to this topic, or maybe issues related to the environment, over 4 years, or issues related to war and peace, or issues related to windmills off the coast of coastal countries with coast. I mean, the more specific you can get in that entry, the more likely it's going to read and really pop to application readers, and the more likely, frankly, it's going to be able to be connected to other activities you've pursued over high school. And that's really the creme de la creme position to be in. You want to be in a position where if you are truly passionate about windmills off the coast of countries, for whatever, maybe you think it's great that there are windmills off the coasts in the oceans off the coast. Maybe you think it's horrible because you think it's horrible all the whales that are being, and all the other wildlife in the ocean that are being killed because of the sounds and what they're bumping into. Maybe I don't take a position on it for the purposes of this video, but let's say you come down very strongly one way or the other, and you really so interested in that you have you've been able to carve a niche out for yourself in the MUN club at your school, where you have been able to talk about that either at conferences or get other members of your MUN chapter or team to put out a resolution or statement within your school community or at a local conference or at a national or regional conference about that particular topic of windmills off the coast of a particular beach or coast. You get my point. Let's say, it's likely, since you're so passionate about it, windmills or the environment or wildlife in the ocean is going to come through in other parts of your application too, other resume entries. Maybe you're in the Environmental Protection Club. Maybe you're in the Global Warming Club. Maybe you're in the Oceanography Club, or you're taking oceanography if your school offers a specialized class in that in 12th grade. So my point is you're going to let your life speak. There's a Quaker saying, let your life speak. Colleges want you to be bold. They want you to take your passions and run with them. And it's most likely, if a passion is truly authentic, you're going to have various extracurricular resume entries related to a theme that's truly important and that resonates with you on your final extracurricular resume for college. And so in a situation like that, Model UN can make a lot of sense because the way in which you particularly engage in Model UN is a very clear puzzle piece connected to another puzzle piece about something that thematically connects with Model UN. And then all of a sudden, you don't just have one entry related to international relations on your resume that sort of doesn't fit anything else. You may have 3 or 4 entries related to that particular strand, that particular topic that runs through the 2, the 3, the 4, maybe even the 5 different activities that you've pursued that all relate to, let's say, again, in this case, windmills. Maybe you're really into wind energy and the ways in which it can be done well, the ways it can be done poorly. And you have a whole section on your resume related to wind power. And then all of a sudden, Model UN can be a real feather in your cap because colleges can see that wind power is the common thread, the tie that binds together all of these activities within this particular section of your extracurricular resume. And then all of a sudden, Model UN makes a lot of sense because Johnny or Janie has pursued it in a way that's authentic to his or her true passions. And that is head and shoulders above having MUN on there just to collect an extracurricular activity. If you are doing Model UN to fill your time and show to colleges that you are capable of getting involved in something, well, that's true of any activity. That's going to usually crash and burn because you're not going to do anything particularly noteworthy in that activity. Whereas if you're doing it as a way to harness a true passion, and that passion is going to play itself out notably, and you're going to be able to communicate about that on your extracurricular activity, that is a situation where Model UN makes a lot of sense. Long story short, Model UN, is it good? Is it bad? It's a maybe. It could be really good for you. It could be really bad for you. The most important thing is your intentions. And yes, you obviously want a huge upshot on your college application ultimately, but that in of itself is not a reason to do it. If that's the only reason you're doing it, most likely you're not going to ascend to the level you need to ascend in that activity to make Model UN a noteworthy, memorable entry on your extracurricular resume as a part of your college application. Whereas it would be a great activity if you're going to find yourself in a forum, if Model UN provides you a forum in which to run with a passion, then it's probably a very interesting and wise choice and could really be a boon to your overall undergraduate first-year application. Again, my name is Craig Meister. If you want to learn more about how you can plan strategically for extracurricular activities throughout your entire high school career, and ultimately how to put together an extracurricular resume that makes a lot of sense for the colleges you're applying to, I strongly recommend that you ultimately work with me one-on-one. You can go to my website, collegemeister.com, to learn how you can do just that. If you enjoyed this free video, by all means, give it a thumbs up. Please do. That would really help. I appreciate it. But also subscribe to this channel, and also feel free to watch my back catalog of videos, which again, you can find at youtube.com/collegemeister. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay stress-free throughout the entire college application and admissions processes.